You're listening to Succeed, Just Let Go, a podcast that'll change how you think and change your life. I'm Willie Horton and I'm a psychologist, been helping people change their lives since 1996. Broadcasting from the French Alps, and delighted to have you along. Let's take this week's step in the right direction.
There can be a sense amongst students of the law of attraction, if I can call them that one simply needs to set one's mind to what they want to achieve and then sit back and do nothing. Now, the reason I bring this up is because last week's podcast was about doing nothing. And again, one could be forgiven for thinking that in putting the law of attraction and the suggestion that you do nothing together, I'm actually suggesting that all you have to do is let whatever happens happen, and things will move you in the right direction. That's kind of akin to deciding to set a goal that you've won the lottery, to write it down as if you've already achieved it, and then not bothering to buy a lottery ticket. We all have to do what we have to do. And really, what the law of attraction is all about is doing. What mindfulness is all about is doing. Focus is about doing. In fact, everything that you could conceivably think of in your life is about doing something. That could be making sure that you actually turn up to a family dinner, mind and body, rather than just bodily. It could mean that you are fully engaged when you sit down with potential clients. It means, in effect, that at all times you are completely immersed in the here and now, doing just what you need to do. Now, you see, this is the benefit of developing your mindfulness. It's the benefit of mindfulness meditation. Some people have the impression that mindfulness is an end in itself. No, mindfulness is a means, that's all it is. Mindfulness enables you to turn up to the here and now, be present, and to do what you need to do to get to where you want to go. And the where you want to go bit is related back to the law of attraction. Now, I don't like the phrase law of attraction, but a lot of people seem to be hooked on that particular phraseology. So let's stick with it, bearing in mind that actually what I'm talking about is one of a couple of pieces of a jigsaw that will enable you live the kind of life that your heart desires effortlessly. And I've deliberately zoned in on the word effortlessly here because, in effect, that is what people experience when they see their dreams come true, if I can use that phraseology, and often mistake it for a sense that something just happened and that they did nothing. Over the years, many, and perhaps most of my clients and many of the owners of the online program, The Psychology of Success, have said to me, things have just started to happen. And it really genuinely feels as if they are just happening. It feels like I didn't have anything to do to enable the things that I need to happen. I had a conversation with a client only yesterday morning when we were talking about how opportunities abound. And I quoted another client to him in saying that my other client realized that opportunities were everywhere, but she only realized it when she actually opened her eyes. Now, her way of expressing the fact that she'd actually woken up, become aware, and tuned in and turned up to the here and now. Those opportunities were happening all the time. This guy I was talking to yesterday said, "You'll never believe what happened. I came across an ideal opportunity to move me forward in my career, and actually it feels as if I did nothing." Now, the interesting thing is that he found this opportunity scrolling through his iPad. Now, unfortunately, scrolling through your iPad is often akin to being absolutely mindless. You're just sitting there letting your finger do whatever it does, and it'll take you to wherever your mindless mind will allow itself to be led. But this guy was scrolling mindfully, and that is the difference. He had turned up to what he was doing. The way in which we scroll through Facebook pages or Facebook feeds or news feeds or Twitter or anything, Instagram or anything like that, normally means we miss half of what is going on. Now, I would suggest actually you miss almost all of what's going on, and research would certainly back me up in that regard. But if you know what you're looking for, you'll find it. This guy knew what he was looking for. He actually couldn't believe the specific nature of the opportunity that he spotted, because all he had done was kind of wished. Now, he'd wished obviously in a very particular way, because we've been talking about wishing before, and as I've said before, the subconscious mind, the doing mind, the living mind, the being mind, the bit of you that will enable you to do just what you need to do to get to where you want to go, doesn't understand wishing. So when I use the word wishing in this context, he'd actually set his mind to ferret out the opportunities for him to enable him move forward in his life. Now, ferret out actually suggests there's effort involved. There isn't really any effort involved, but you still got to do what you've got to do. Again, over the years, as I said a minute ago, many of my clients have said, stuff is just happening, and it feels as if I had no hand, act or part in making it happen. And yet, on reflection, they will realise that they had made the right throwaway remark to the right person, in the right way, at the right time, and they'd left a trail of breadcrumbs that effectively led them to what they wanted to achieve. There's an enormous difference between that approach to living your life to the full and having a plan to get what you want. And that's really what I want to talk about in this episode. I believe it was Eisenhower who said that planning is indispensable, but plans are useless, or words to that effect. The problem, of course, with plans is that they are logically pieced together by the thinking mind. And the thinking mind knows nothing. It knows nothing about how to get what you want out of life. But boy, does it think it knows everything, and boy, does it make a noise in your own head, granted, about thinking that it knows everything. It will always second guess your gut instinct or intuition, and it will always point you in the other direction. And if you have found that to be happening to yourself, you need to pull yourself together and come back to your senses, because what your gut instinct is telling you is that doing, living, being part of your mind that I mentioned a minute ago, the subconscious mind, the non-thinking mind, the part of your mind that knows exactly what you need to do and exactly when you need to do it to move you forward in your life. And it knows this stuff so precisely and exactly that the whole thing feels effortless. The effort only comes when you get in your own way. By the way, that's why this podcast is called To Succeed, Just Let Go. Just let go of your preconceived notions and plans as to how you will get what you want out of life. Have you ever had a plan to get something and it worked exactly as formulated? Let me ask you a more telling question. Did you plan to meet your nearest and dearest, or your current nearest and dearest for that matter? Or do these things, the good things in life, just happen? Now, I know people will say to me, well, hold on, bad things in life just happen as well. And we all know that bad things happen all of the time. But we are talking here, first of all, in the context of bad things happening to you from externally. I'm talking about good things happening for you from internally, as a result of you being centered, as a result of you being focused, as a result of you knowing what you want, and as a result of you doing the most important thing in your life. What's that? It is turning up to your life in the here and now. When you turn up to your life in the here and now, when you haven't just woken up and become aware, but when you have got to the point that you are staying awake and are constantly aware of what is going on, not only are you going to ferret out life's opportunities. I used that phrase earlier on. These opportunities are simply going to present themselves, and you will recognize them for what they are. You'll recognize them for an opportunity you should grasp, or an opportunity that you should let pass by. But when you turn up to the here and now, you'll always be the right person, in the right place, at the right time, doing the right things, saying the right things in the right way. You actually create opportunities. It is what people like Deepak Chopra call synchronicity. You actually begin to play with the energy of the universe. And if you think I'm talking a load of nonsense there, listen back to some of the earlier episodes where I talk about energy and how the world really works. The world really only works in your favor when you actually turn up to the world. And that's why I said a moment ago that the most important thing you have to do in your life is turn up to the here and now. When you're in the here and now, you'll simply and effortlessly leave the little trail of breadcrumbs that I mentioned a few minutes ago. How different is that to saying, I need to do this to get to that milestone. I need to do that to climb another rung on the ladder. I need to do those two things before I do the third thing that will get me a little bit further towards my goal and objective. You see, the thinking mind always thinks that you need to not just have a plan, but it needs to be kind of calibrated in a way that you have what business planners call milestones. In other words, typical strategic planning in business, and believe you me, I've been there and I've done that. Granted, what I did for some of the companies with whom I've worked was not typical, but typical business planning will suggest that if our business is at A at the moment, and we would love to get it to H, that we need to go through the milestones of B, C, D, E, F, and G, and we need to go through them in that order, and we need to achieve them one at a time. That's thinking mind rubbish. That's all I can say. I can't put a finer gloss on it. It's thinking mind rubbish. What neuroscience has established again and again and again is that your doing mind, your living mind, the subconscious mind, is like a heat-seeking missile. It has a cybernetic ability. If you set your coordinates for H, going back to the example I used a minute ago, your cybernetic mind will simply enable you to do just what you need to do in the right way at the right time, so that you lightly trip from A to J to Y to H. Or indeed, I know clients who have simply gone from A to H in what might be scientifically called a quantum leap. It doesn't matter what it's called. I've seen it happen. The key thing is that you need to get out of your own way. You need to park your thinking mind, and you need to turn up to the here and now. When you turn up to the here and now, not only will you be able to do the right things in the right way at the right time, you'll actually start living your life to the full, and you'll realize that what you thought were your goals and objectives are just wonderful experiences on the journey of a lifetime. It's amazing the number of people who have said to me over the last couple of weeks, oh, I've just realized this living life to the full isn't a destination. It's a journey, and I need to enjoy the ride, and I need to enjoy the ride right now. I was talking to a client earlier today who's been waiting for promotion for quite some time, and he said to me, I can't really do the job I'm supposed to be doing at the moment. I'm stuck in waiting mode. I said, how many nows, how many moments of your life have you wasted stuck in waiting mode? You can't wait to start living your life to the full on the basis of something that might or mightn't happen. And I'll come back to the might or mightn't in a minute. You have to live your life now, because now is the only time and place you have. What about the remark I made a moment ago in relation to what might or mightn't happen? Surely if you want something to happen and it doesn't happen, it means what I'm talking about doesn't work. Not at all. Generally speaking, and I'm generalizing, but I'm not leaping to assumptions. This is backed by science and backed by 25 years of doing what I'm doing with my clients and getting their feedback. Generally speaking, when you set your mind to an objective and that objective doesn't come to pass, it is because the one that is waiting in the queue is a far more life-enhancing and joyful experience and achievement. And that goes back to the point I made a minute ago in relation to the thinking mind, knowing that in order to get from A to H we need to go through B, C, D, E, F and G. How do you know H is what you want to achieve? H is only what you think you want to achieve. And if I go back to the example of business planning, what I learned in my business years before I ever started working for myself at all, and what I have subsequently seen in many organizations, is that the H that businesses set for themselves is appallingly mediocre. Most of the successful businesses in this world are only successful against a painfully low, mediocre norm. You know, I've heard businesses say, oh, we did 2 million turnover this year. We have a stretch target for next year. We're going to make 2.5 million. Why couldn't it be 10 million? Why couldn't it be any number of million? Or why don't you forget about the millions altogether and do what you need to do to live the kind of life you want, and the money will actually follow. We've talked about that before. I'm going to do another episode probably next week in relation to that as well, because people don't believe me. People think I am talking some kind of fairy tale. But again and again and again, over the last 25 years, in my own business, in the businesses of all of the people with whom I have worked, and I actually mean one-man bands, people, one man and one woman bands, people who are working just for themselves. I mean small businesses. I mean small businesses that have become big businesses. I mean medium business. I mean multinational businesses, global businesses. Money follows intention. You need to know what your intentions are. Once you know what your intentions are, and once you have slotted them into the part of your mind that will enable you simply do what you need to do to get to where you want to go, of course the achievement of your goals is going to feel as if it has just happened. Of course it will feel as if you have done nothing, because again, neuroscience has confirmed again and again and again that when I know what I want, and I mean really want, I'm not saying when I know what I think I want. When I know what I want, when I've set my mind accordingly, when I turn up to the here and now, I'll do what I need to do so effortlessly that I use almost no neural energy. There's almost no neural activity involved. It's like as if I am simply dancing through life effortlessly. I think I've used the ballerina analogy before, but that's exactly what it's like. You'll never put a foot wrong. It doesn't mean that somebody else won't attempt to trip you up. Life's challenges that I mentioned earlier on. But the fact is that if somebody, or if or when actually somebody tries to trip you up, those outside events, you'll dance around them. As I said, you'll never put a foot wrong. So when I say that turning up to the here and now is the most important thing that you need to do in your life, because it will enable you to do just what you need to do to get you to where you want to go, I also mean that it will enable you not do what you don't need to do, not push your foot in it, not trip up over somebody else's outstretched leg, not put your foot on a landmine that somebody else has deliberately put there for you. I mean that too, but I also mean something else. When you are confronted with these challenges, you still won't put a foot wrong. You'll still do just what you need to do to sail past the challenge, not to even overcome the challenge, but to sail past it, because all challenges in life are like all moments in life. They arise and they pass. So you don't need to get yourself all hyped up. You don't need to get yourself all anxious and panicked when confronted by a challenge. What you need to do is just let go. I'll use that phrase again. What you need to do is just turn up. Then you'll know what is actually going on, and you'll do just what you need to do to get yourself out of that situation and move forward effortlessly. It all boils down to not having a plan. It all boils down to not even having to know your life's big purpose. What it boils down to is understanding that the biggest and greatest and most exciting purpose we all have in life is living life to the full in the here and now, and letting ourselves look after ourselves, letting the inner you do what it does best effortlessly. It enables you to do just what you need to do to get to where you want to go. Let's reflect on that for a moment. I know I've mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again in this context. 7,000 or 8,000 years ago, when your sole intention in life, or at least your primary intention in life, was to make it through the day, if you were confronted by a potentially life-ending situation, like a bear jumps out of the bushes in front of you, this part of your mind that I'm talking about, the subcortical brain in fact, it'll enable you to do just what you need to do effectively and effortlessly. In other words, it'll enable you run away and live to fight another day. That's how this piece of equipment in your head works. All you have to do, as somebody who wants to achieve all the wonderful things that your heart desires, all you have to do is give this piece of your brain a new set of coordinates. The hardwired coordinates are, I'll make it back to bed alive and well tonight. That's from 7,000 or 8,000 years ago, when life was a little less complicated than we have made it nowadays. And I think that's the key point. It isn't that life is more complicated now. It isn't that our brains work in a more complicated way now. Life is still as simple as you make it, and our brains are still as powerful and focused as they always were. All you have to do is give your brain a new set of coordinates. What set of coordinates will you give these parts of your brain if you don't know what life's grand purpose is? Well, why not get into practice and give your subconscious mind a set of coordinates for something that you know you want to achieve? Why not start? I was going to say, why not start small? But actually, it's the small stuff in life that leads us to the grand stuff. An awful lot of people ask me, how does one go about making grand decisions in their life, or brave and courageous decisions? One of the examples that a lot of my clients cite to me is me leaving the bank, walking out of a high-paid job 25 and a half years ago. And another example, me moving with my wife and 3 young children to France without any of my 3 children having a word of French and being put straight into French schools, and leaving Ireland and setting up afresh. And people ask me, how do you go about making those grand decisions? And the answer is, you don't have any grand decisions to make. When it gets to the point that you find yourself saying to yourself, I think we'll move to France, it is as a result of all the breadcrumbs that I mentioned earlier on. It's the small stuff that matters. It is the little decisions that move you forward. It's the little choices that we make from day to day. And there is one most important choice that we all have to make in our life, not just day to day, but now and now and now again. And that is, have I turned up to the present, or have I let my mind take me away from the present again? Am I fully in flow in the zone? Have I done what it takes today to enable me be fully in flow in the zone? If I find myself drifting from the zone, have I the presence of mind to enable myself take a deep breath, center myself, and stop and come back to the reality of the here and now? You're never going to have an opportunity to make wonderful, grand decisions in your life, or what you think are wonderful, grand decisions, if you don't make the right little decisions. And it doesn't matter what little decisions you got right or wrong in the past. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've missed half your life by being dead from the neck up. As somebody said to me a few weeks ago when I met her first, she said, "Oh my God, I've wasted the first 59 years of my life." I said to her, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. Other people have said to me, "Oh, I wish I'd met you years ago." It doesn't matter. Other people will say, "Oh, I wish I hadn't done that," or "I wish I hadn't made that decision," or "I wish I didn't make that career move." All in the past, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter where you think you are now and what mess you think you've got yourself into now. What matters is, and this is all that matters, is that you turn up to the real world in the here and now. Body, mind and soul. Body, mind, spirit, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it scientifically your mind, your body and your own vital energy. When you turn up to the here and now, you cannot go wrong. And even if things go wrong around you, as I said earlier on, you still cannot go wrong. You'll always get it right. Always. And that is why we don't just need to wake up. That is why we don't just need to become aware. That's why we don't just need to tune in every morning. We need not just to wake up. We need to stay awake. We need to live our lives in the moment like we mean them. And you need to do it now. So, what are you going to do now to ensure that you are present now, which will lead you inexorably into another present now? And if you find your mind wandering, you'll be able to stop yourself again because of the practice you have in turning up to the here and now. Notice I didn't ask, what have you done so far today to turn up to the here and now, to turn up to your life? Because it doesn't matter what has happened in the past. What matters is what you do now. You better get on with it.
You've been listening to Succeed, Just Let Go. To get involved, join me in my Facebook group, strangely enough called To Succeed, Just Let Go. And for more information, visit www.willie-horton.com.